Muscle is the creator of carnivore pure beef protein isolate. Beef builds muscle, and carnivore is the world's #1 selling beef protein.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Fak Attack, starring IFBB professional and awesome contest prep coach, Fakhri Mubarak. How are you, Fakhri?
Thank you, Ron. How you doing, man?
Doing great. So this is going to premiere in the new year, 2023.
Very awesome.
And as you know, when January rolls around, people start thinking about dropping all that winter weight. There's contests in the spring. People start their contest prep diets. A lot of people are looking for coaches, looking for ideas, advice. So I thought we'd get together, you and I, and talk about how people can figure out the best diet for them, because I have seen cases where quote unquote coaches have given out cookie cutter diets where everybody gets the same exact diet, but
easy.
I don't think that's the best way to go about things, because people are different. So where do you stand on that? I mean, you've worked with literally thousands of people. How do you start figuring out what type of diet somebody should follow?
Well, going back to the cookie cutter diet, I get asked a lot of questions, before people hire me, like, what's your system? What are your ideologies about, like, dieting and stuff like that. And I write back to them where I tell them, I don't have any. And they're like, what? I'm like, I don't have any. I'm like, there's no way of, if anybody tells you, well, this is the type of diet I use whatever, keto, low carbs before the workout, carbs after the workout, blah, blah, blah. They're fucking bullshitting you, because there's no way, right? There's no way of dieting, 20 different type of people, especially like, even if Ron, you've done a lot of shows, right?
Yeah.
How many shows have you done that has been the same exact prep, same exact diet? Probably none of them, right?
They've all been different. Every single
They've all
one.
been different. So a lot of people like, well, what are your ideas? How do you function? What are your? I'm like, I don't have any. I do different things according to the changes and according to the pictures that I get.
Yeah. So, I mean, because, a lot of people who do use one ideology, one system, I always like to throw it back to keto, because that's the most common thing people talk about and want to follow. It's easy. It's just, okay. It's easy for people to wrap their heads around, okay, I'm not going to eat carbs. I'm just going to have healthy fats and protein, and that's it. But how many people in your experience does keto work very well for, and how many people have, negative effects to their physique from keto?
So over the last 2.5 weeks, I have used keto myself.
Oh.
Because I'm 49 years old. I'm not in any gear, yeah. And I wanted to get in shape as fast as I could. So I've been on keto pretty much for 2.5 weeks. Just because of those exact reasons, right? I wanted to shed as much body fat as possible. I've been training for 33 years. My muscle's not going anywhere. I haven't lost no strength. I could be on keto for 6 months and I'm not going to lose any strength, because my muscle is my muscle, right? And I'm also not, I'm not on any PED, so I'm not going to lose anything. As a contest prep coach or as a competitor, I never use keto. Keto is a fast form. Well, let me rephrase that. I've never used keto as a complete system, right? So I've implemented it maybe like a week at a time, especially if I know somebody's cheating, right? Somebody's cheating, you're gonna say, well, you know what? All right, are you cheating? Oh, I'm not cheating, coach. I'm doing everything 100%. I'm killing it every day in the gym. All right, so let's do this week. If the person doesn't lose any weight, if they're going from, like, I don't know, let's say like 400 grams of carbs or 300 grams of carbs, which was basically my lowest amount of carbs, because my resting metabolic rate was 2750, right? And it was actually still 2750 up to like 2 years ago that I had, the whole testing thing done that you breathe into and everything.
Yeah.
So that's when I would implement keto. Also, if a person needs to drop weight really quick to make a weight class, other than that, I mean, I don't think keto is effective for dieting, because for many different reasons. One, there's no carbs, there's no glycogen going into your muscles, right? Yeah. So we talk about protein and nitrogen retention being what builds muscle. So carbs not anabolic per se, right? They don't increase nitrogen retention and stuff. Remember, guys, carbs carbs and glycogen will fill up your muscle, right?
Mm.
So your muscles are made out of protein and water, but it's the glycogen and the carbs that actually fill up your muscle. So if you're going a whole entire prep without glycogen, without carbs, you're gonna look depleted. You're gonna look flat. You know, you don't have carbs. You're also gonna, you're not gonna be as strong in the gym. That's just the way it is. Especially when you're contest prepping. You're dropping the carbs. First of all, mentally you're fucked up, right? Mentally, like, oh my God, I have no carbs. I'm not eating no carbs. So that is just destroy somebody mentally. Top of that, carbs give you energy. Is the source of energy out of the 3 micronutrients. So you're not gonna have energy. And there's really no flexibility in the diet, right? I mean, what's the flexibility? Go have a cheat meal.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I mean, I wrote a couple of things down. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, again, the glycogen in the muscle, filling up the muscle, staying full, no flexibility on the diet. It's good for losing weight really quick for people that are, people that are not competitors. I know a lot of coaches use it. But you're right. That's probably the highest cookie cutter diet there is. And it's stealing from people, man. That's not, sorry. God, listen, we know a lot of coaches that use keto, man, but that's not, you just don't give somebody a keto program and be like, yeah, use this for the next 12 months or 12 weeks, whatever.
Well, so you just said you personally could do keto for 6 months. You wouldn't lose any muscle mass or strength. Why can you get away with that and not have any bad effects when we see it? When I've only tried keto for brief periods and hated it. But maybe it was more of a mind fuck thing than, oh no carbs, I'm getting weak, I'm getting flat, and this and that. So I mean, how are you so successful on keto?
No. What I said was I've been on keto for the last 2.5 weeks, and the reason why I'm on keto is because I wanted to drop weight as fast as I can. I was not in good shape. I am not in good shape right now. I'm not happy with the way I look. So the only reason why I decided to use keto. So when I want to drop weight myself right now, as a 49-year-old man, on no PEDs, the fastest way to drop weight is what? Calorie deficiency, which is mostly how you burn body fat anyway. For the most part, we're going to talk about the role of PEDs and everything else in there. So myself speaking, I've been on keto. So either I go on keto or I go on a fasting diet. Myself, as a coach, I do not implement that for 12 to 16 week prep at all. Never, ever.
Talk about intermittent fasting now.
Yeah. So what I would do is, let's say, I'll wake up. I mean, sometimes you guys see I'm up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I go to the gym. So let's say I get up at let's say it's a 5 o'clock in the morning thing, right? Yeah. So I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I have my coffee. I'll do like a bulletproof type of thing, coffee with a little bit some high fats and stuff. And then that will hold me off. So let's say I sleep 8 hours, wake up, have the coffee. I'm out to the gym. So that's another 2 hours. So that's 10 hours. And then I have a meal or shake around the 11th hour. So that would be my intermittent fasting. It would be between 11 to 12 hours. And then I would eat a sensible meals. I wouldn't do keto with intermittent fasting because then you're not going to get enough calories to do anything. So now you're burning body fat and muscle. I don't care how mature your muscle is. So I would eat sensible meals probably throughout the day. Not load up like other people do after intermittent fasting. But again, Ron, that's me. Let's say I'm a normal 49-year-old man not taking PEDs, but we are talking about competitors here.
Yeah, we're probably going to do some PEDs. So this is one thing that's been thrown around the whole idea of dieting is it really all comes down to calories in versus calories out. You've seen these memes where they run down 5, 6, 8 different popular diets. And the common thread with all of them is caloric restriction. So that theory says that it doesn't matter whether it's keto or this or that or intermittent. If you're taking in less calories than you're expending, you're going to lose body fat. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
I agree with that until a point. So can we talk about PEDs now?
Well, you can, whenever you want to throw that in there. Sure.
All right. So this is the way. All right. Let's talk about the way I diet competitors.
Okay.
So I believe in a surplus of calories.
Okay.
So by having a surplus of calories, you're not burning muscle, right? You're feeding your body enough calories to maintain the muscle, right? Enough protein, which is probably anywhere between 1.5 to 2 grams of protein. Again, we're talking about bodybuilders. We're not talking about, USADA pyramid charts and stuff like that.
Right.
So we're feeding them, 1.5 to 2 grams of protein. Carbohydrates will start off high because we're going from an off season usually into a contest prep. If I get somebody between 12 to 16 weeks out of a show, I would still start them where they were doing in their off season. So if you're grabbing somebody, or your client is coming to you at 16 weeks out, and he's having 500 grams of carbs, you're not going to drop his carbs down to 200, right? I mean, you can't do that because he's going to have a massive weight drop. And most of these guys, let's be very honest. Most of these guys, start taking PDs at a very early age, so they don't have that muscle maturity is not there, which is what you see. You see a lot of guys who stop working out or stop bodybuilding or retire, and they lose so much muscle so quickly. So I believe in the surplus calories. I then use the cardio to burn the excess calories. I then use the clenbuterol. I have a little fat stack that I use, clenbuterol, CLA, L-carnitine. So we're using a cardio, we're using a clenbuterol, and we'll use 25 micrograms of T3. That's what we'll start with. So by having a surplus of calories, you're not going to burn muscle. You're going to burn body fat through the body fat, mechanisms that you are using, the body, the cardio, the T3, and the clenbuterol. Now, what a lot of people are, what I've always been known for is, well, Fakhri likes to feed us too much food. I mean, yeah, it's crazy, right? So like, people are scared because I feed them too much food. So I mean, I don't know what's worse, you eating a lot of food, or you complaining about starving and doing 1,000, hours of cardio.
Right.
But that's where the eye comes in, right? So the eye actually comes in when you could have somebody, as opposed to keto, when you could have somebody having a surplus calories, to maintain the body mass as well as gain muscle throughout the prep and be able to make the changes. Because when you have calories, and we're talking about calories completely overall with carbs, carbohydrates, and fat. When you have calories, you can manipulate the diet. When you don't have calories, you cannot manipulate the diet. I mean, if you're on low calories or you're on low carbs, are you going to go on negative carbs? Can we do negative carbs?
I don't think so.
We can't do negative carbs, right? So we're going to start going from like 100 grams of carbs down to 50 grams of carbs, down to 0 grams of carbs. And then when the body doesn't make a change, what are you going to do? What's the only thing left to do? Increase the drugs, go to 50 micrograms, 75 micrograms, 100 micrograms of T3, increase the clenbuterol, and then increase the cardio, which is completely fucking insane and unhealthy. So that's my way of dieting. And that's what's worked for me, and that's what's worked for my clients. We've done pretty well. Not to say that everybody could diet on 300 grams of carbs, but a lot of people can. A lot of people do. And again, we make the changes according to what we need. Like, if we have to, another thing is, carb cycling, right?
Yeah.
You have the option of carb cycling when you have the calories in there. And the carbs, again, when we're talking about calories, we're talking about carbs, protein, and fat.
Yeah.
When you have the calories in there, you're able to manipulate it many different ways. But when you're restricted, you cannot go negative carbs. You can't say negative 5 grams, 20 grams of yams, negative 1 cup of brown rice. There's nothing to change, and that's where people get stuck. And a lot of people get stuck. And there's no way for the body to go. So you just have to increase the drugs and the cardio, and that's fucking insane.
Here's a question I've always had. You can answer this. So when people do get stuck, and there's going to be several points during any prep when you're going to get stuck, it's inevitable. Right. Some people will say this is the time to do a cheat meal or a refeed. It's going to jumpstart it's going to reset the leptin hormone and the ghrelin hormone, and now your body's going to start recalibrating and losing fat again. Does that work for most people?
So a cheat meal. So what's the benefit of having a cheat meal with oil, sugars, fucking lard? Like, what exactly is the benefit of having like all those bad stuff?
It's delicious.
Yeah, it's delicious and it's fantastic, but then you're gonna look like shit, right?
Yeah.
So there is no fucking benefit of having a cheat meal. Now, I never had cheat meals when I competed. So when I competed, I looked in the mirror. If I was a little flat that day, I was very honest with myself. I had a good team around me and said, I'm a little flat. All right, so let's bump up. Let's have an extra half a cup of rice for for the first 3 meals, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I started putting in cheat meals, I think like my 4th or 5th year of coaching, because, oh, coach, can I have a cheat meal? Can I have this? Can I have that? But even if you see when my clients have the cheat meals, I put 1 cheat meal this week. Please be aware your goals. Have a professional cheat meal. This is your cheat meal. Sushi, even a burger and fries. Go out to have a good steak dinner, but nothing crazy. Like people go insane and they don't realize, and they don't even think about it. Like, why am I having all this sugar? Why am I having all these fats? Why am I having all these saturated fats? Why am I having all these bad sugars? Because there's good sugar and bad sugar. Why am I having all these, these bad nutrients? What's the purpose of it? Like, what is it doing to my body? It's not helping my body. So when a person gets stuck and they're already too low on the amount of food, then yeah, remember, if your metabolism is not moving and it's not moving fast enough, we have to adjust the diet. We have to add more food. And this is where people freak out. Oh shit, coach, you're adding an extra 200 grams of carbs to my diet for the next 3 or 4 days. I'm like, yeah, bro. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, you want to go? Like I told you, Ron, and I tell people the same thing. I'm very frank. That you know me for years. Most people on here know me. I'm a very straight up person. I'm like, so what do you want to do? You want to go negative carbs? How are you going to go negative carbs? So yeah, we have to kickstart the metabolism somehow, and it usually works. Because it has to work. The body's already in starvation mode, and you guys have to remember too, when the body goes into starvation mode, when you're like, it's not even calorie deficiency anymore. It's starvation mode. The body's going to take in every single nutrient it can, and it's going to store it. I don't care if it's protein, carbohydrates, or fats. It's going to store it, and it's not going to let it go, because your organs leave fatty, fats around it. You can't. Your body's just going to store it, and that's what happens when you start starving yourself.
Yeah. So why do so many people think they look way better after a cheat meal? Is just because yeah, but why is it because they were just so depleted and now their glycogen stores got full?
Absolutely. So to just to go further more into the question you just asked me, I have a lot of clients say the show is Saturday. Oh man, I'm gonna send you a picture Sunday morning. I'm gonna send you a picture after I had all this and all that. I'm like, all right, but send me a picture of your backside. Send me a picture of your glutes. Send me pictures of your lower back, because that's where you're going to be holding the water, right? So if you miss the peak, and you missed the peak because you were underfed, and then you had the cheat meal, and then you had a lot of food afterwards, that means your coach missed the peak. That doesn't necessarily mean that you look better with the junk food. If I peak you correctly, you're going to look good on stage. You're going to look perfect on stage. Next day, are you going to be more veiny, more vascular, more popping if you eat bad food? Yeah, you are. But send me the pictures of your lower back and send me pictures of your glutes. That's where you're going to hold, and your hamstrings. That's where you're going to hold the water.
Yeah. I mean, it's not only that, because I've done the same thing. Everyone's taking those pictures Sunday morning after all that shit food. Or you're looking in the mirror and you're 2 feet away from the mirror and you're like, whoa, all these veins. But that's so different from judges being 15, 20 feet away from you under the stage lights. You don't realize a lot of your separation is blurred out, the details. You're just looking at things like veins and a couple striations.
Right.
So it's really not making you. A lot of people think they look better after all this.
Everybody does the most.
They really don't.
Hey, Ron, and also remember, they're by themselves. They're not in a lineup anymore full of people. They're standing by themselves, popped out. Their veins are popping out. The skin is all tight from everything they ate. But again, they don't look better unless the coach missed the peak. If the coach missed the peak, which a lot of coaches do, sometimes they'll give them too many diuretics. Sometimes they'll cut the water too soon, or sometimes they won't add in enough water. Again, no two prep is the same. No two preps are exactly the same. I prep myself for many shows. I prep, man. I have over 5,000 preps because I have my QuickBooks into it, and I have everybody. You know, I run this like a business. I mean, this has been a business for mine for years. So I have everybody who I prep. I have notes. You know, lifestyle clients. You know, prep clients, bodybuilders. You know, whatever the case is. And no two preps are the same. And I've had people for a couple of years, few years, and no two preps are the same.
So yeah, obviously the thing that gets manipulated the most in any diet is the carb intake. So how does somebody know? Some people do require large amounts of carbs, and some people, they can't get away with eating. They have to go pretty low carb, or else their body fat just doesn't budge. So how do you determine when you take on new clients where they fit on that spectrum?
So going back to what I said, if I have you in the off season, if I have you long enough, and this is almost every coach, right? Every good coach, if they have you long enough, they're going to understand how your metabolism works. They're going to understand, you know, where you're at, you know, how much food you can eat, and then they have a baseline for where they can start you off. If somebody comes over and there's only 12 to 16 weeks out, I always ask, what are you currently eating? You know, what have you currently done? What are you currently eating? What have you currently done? What PEDs have you done in the past? What are you currently doing? And then from there, we could, you know, we could make a plan. But the plan has to start exactly where it's at. The plan cannot start if somebody's taking 500 grams of carbs and 12 weeks out. You can't be like, oh shit, this guy's fat. I'm gonna lower it to like keto, or I'm gonna lower it to 100 grams of carbs. You just cannot do that because, you know, people are very sensitive. Not just with carbs, but people are very sensitive with calories. You take away, a person could lose 15 pounds in a week, you know. So you have to really start at where they're at, you know, and understand their bodies, you know. And with 12 to 16 weeks out, I think it's enough time.
Okay. So another thing, I'm sure you come into I'm sure many of your clients have said, Fak, I feel flat, I look flat, and I mean, I don't know if it was you. Somebody made a good post. I think it was you saying that's part of the process. If you're not supposed to be full and bursting throughout a prep. If you are, that's like you're in the off season. You're probably not going to end up in shape. Do you think a lot of people have this unreasonable expectation that they're always supposed to feel nice and big and full in a prep?
It also depends on genetics, right? So if you're small bone, you know, big muscle bellies, you know, it's hard for you to get flat. You know, you might think you're flat, but your coach is gonna be saying, "Shit, you have good genetics. You're not flat." You know, if you're big bone and you don't have, you know, the really big round muscle bellies, those are the guys that usually get flat. Is it okay to get flat during a prep? If your weight is not dropping, so let's say you're 220, right? Let's say you're 220, and 1 week you're 220 and you're popping, right? And the next week, you know, we lower the amount of food. You know, we had to up the cardio, you know, another 30 minutes, you know, or whatever. You're doing 30 minutes, we had an extra 15 minutes, and we lowered it from like 300 grams of carbs to like 100 grams of carbs, only because, you know, we wanted to see where your metabolism is. Again, you cannot do a big drop like that. And you're 219. Right, so you were 220, now you're 219.
Yeah.
You know, oh man, coach, I'm flat. I'm like, you can't be flat. You only lost 1 pound. You know, you can't be flat. You know, same thing with legs. Legs is such a big issue, right? Man, my legs are disappearing because I'm doing so much cardio. My legs are gone. My legs are this. My legs are that. I'm like, well, you only lost 1 pound. You only lost 1.5 pounds. Like, where are your legs going? You haven't. Go measure your legs. You haven't lost an inch in your legs. You know, you haven't lost this. So a lot of it is psychological, and strength wise is another thing too. So if you're going all out and you're strong and you're lifting, and man, listen, I was a very strong bodybuilder, you know, and my strength from like, and I only did 12-week preps. It was impossible for me to do a 16-week prep because I didn't need it. You know, I've guest posed on stage, you know, and that they had to go get me my posing trunks because I was sitting in the audience. You know, you want to guest pose? I'm like, yeah, I guess. I'm in good shape, you know. So I was never that much out of shape, you know. It's just a matter of everybody's a little different, but the whole thing about losing, about feeling flat, about losing your legs, about this, about your strength. That all has to do with your mentality. If you're not losing that much strength during the prep, you cannot be burning muscle, because if you're burning that much muscle, you're going to be losing a lot of strength. And that was one of my personal gauges was that. My personal gauge was my strength. In a 12-week prep, let's say I benched 100 pounds, right? Not to talk about weights, but let's say I benched 100 pounds. If I got down to like 80 pounds by week 1, from week 12 to week 1, I still had my strength. I was still strong. And that was a big gauge for me. And that's one thing I also ask my clients, how strong are you? Are you keeping your strength? But it has to do a lot with the eye. Like, everybody could coach, everybody could write diets, but like what we're discussing here about dieting has to do with somebody's eye and how they make changes.
Well, getting back to the strength thing, I wonder if sometimes it can be one of those self-fulfilling prophecies where somebody knows they're on less carbs, they know they're doing all this cardio, so they get under the squat bar. Let's say it's 315. They probably could get 10, 12 reps, but in the back of their head, because they're like, I'm dieting, I'm so hungry, I'm so tired, they only get like 7. And then they come back to you and say, Fak, my strength is dropping. My squats are down, my leg press, it's all going down. You need to feed me more. We need to get rid of some of this cardio or something. I think the mind, like you said, the mind is such a huge factor in dieting.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think the mind is a huge factor in dieting, especially because of everything we hear nowadays, especially because of social media, especially people complaining. You hear it all the time. Oh, I'm suffering. I saw somebody put up a post about some bodybuilder at the Olympia, and I was like, send them my way. And then some guy goes, yeah, Fak would do a great job of him. Fak would make him suffer. I'm like, and I wrote back, I said, no, I won't make him suffer. I'll make him understand what he's doing wrong. What's suffering? Like, I never complained during the prep. Like, you could ask people that were, I know I was one of those, like, those missing link type of guys, right? Like, I would just hide out, come do a show. People wouldn't even know, like, who's this Iranian? Who's this Arabic guy? Does he even have his USA citizen? Like, I was one of those guys for pretty much my whole entire, pretty much for 6-7 years that I really competed. But yeah, I think your mentality is a big thing. But then again, it goes back to the weight, right? So how much strength are you really losing if you really drop this? So there's things to measure, right? And one of it is your weight, one of it is your strength, how you're looking. But the whole thing about, man, I feel like shit, I'm suffering, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I just think it's like a cool thing to say. To walk around the gym angry and upset when you're like 6 weeks out. I'm like, stop, man. Just don't do that, man. Especially if I go if I go train with a client and they're complaining and I'm like, yo, bro, you're a pussy, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm my age. I'm not even on PDs and I'm stronger than you are. And I don't say it to be mean, but I say it to push them and realize, they need to step it up, especially in the mental game.
Yeah, I think all the complaining now, the majority of it takes place on Instagram. Because that's when they can get.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They can get people to go, "You poor baby."
Yeah. Or how are you feeling? How are you how you think the person's feeling? They're not feeling well. Yeah. Hey, how you doing? How's your prep going? How you feeling? Hey, you're not supposed to be feeling well. I think I posted this before, right? If you're not happy bodybuilding and it doesn't make you happy, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. This is not it's an easy sport. Bodybuilding is not hard. Bodybuilding is an easy sport, but it's a mental sport, man. And you have to be mentally strong, and you have to want it.
Yeah. Getting back to what you said about you like to feed these, you like to give people a caloric surplus. What if and increase the activity level and introduce a couple PEDs in there? But suppose someone really hates cardio and like, Fak, I would like to do the bare minimum of cardio. Can we cut my calories or my carbs just way back? Because I don't want to do more than 2 20-minute sessions a week. What would you say? what would you say?
You need to find another coach, man.
There you go. There's your answer.
No, but I'll tell them exactly what we've been talking about. I'm like, listen, this is the reason why we're doing it. This is the reason why it works. I've been doing this for 33 years. I mean, this is how I prep people. This is how I prep so-and-so. This is how I prep myself. This is the reason why it has to work. This is the reason why these low calories cannot work, depending on the physique. Yeah, you're right. Some people cannot have a lot of carbs. And the reason why some people cannot have a lot of carbs is because they've always not eating carbs, right? So like if your body's not used to having carbs and your body's used to, especially females. I mean, females always have this issue, you know, I'm carb sensitive. I'm carb sensitive. Or guys, not just, I'm sorry. When I talk about females, I would say most females are stronger minded than most men. And that's coming from a little bit over 2 decades of coaching and 33 years in the sport. You know, I think females push harder mentally, just overall. I was on a podcast the other day and they were talking about females in the gym, and I didn't say anything. I'm like, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, not the females that I know, not the females that, you know, that I prep, like they don't complain that much, you know. But as far as being carb sensitive is, your coaches have starved you in the past. Your coaches have had you on keto in the past. You know, if I get somebody brand new, I don't think any one of them, any new client that I have or any new client I've had just myself from the very beginning has been carb sensitive. Other clients that have come on board, they always, well, I'm carb sensitive, Fak, I can't do this diet. I'm like, trust me, where are you gonna go from like these low carbs? You know, what are you gonna do? You know, and it's just, you could only do 2 things. You could do 3 things: increase the use of PDs, increase cardio, and decrease carbs. What is 0 carbs? And that's the reason why people are carb sensitive, because they've been fucking starved.
True. So, you know, a lot of people are going to hire coaches and hopefully have good success with that. But I think it's not that difficult to do it on your own if you're willing to put in a little work and keep a food log. And like I said, the one thing you can really manipulate the most is carbs. Your protein's always going to be fairly consistent. Unless you're on keto, you're not going to be taking in a ton of fats. It's your carb intake. So what would you suggest to people as far as how they can monitor? You know, maybe I'm eating 400 grams of carbs now, but this week I didn't lose any weight. What, you know, should I try like 350 next week and see how that goes? 300? How would you work it with somebody like that?
Right. So if you're high on food, if you're high on carbs, then yeah, it would make sense to go down, right? So if you're on 400 grams of carbs, like you mentioned, yeah, it would make sense to go to 350 for the week to try that. But on the opposite end, if you're not on high carbs, you know, most people, and Ron, you know, most people who do their own diets are on very little amount of carbs and food to begin with, because that's the norm, right? You have to suffer.
Right.
Bodybuilding cannot be fun. You know, you gotta act, you know, you gotta be mean and upset all the time.
Well, that's true. You can do. But yeah, I think you're right. I think most people go from one extreme to the other. They're eating everything and everything in sight, all kinds of crap food. Maybe they're taking in like 1,000 grams of carbs a day, including, you know, breads and sugary shit like that. Then they decide, okay, now I'm going to diet. I'm going to get in shape. And they go on 0 carbs, or they go on like 100 grams of carbs. And, you know, what happens to this? What happens to the body and the mind when you make such a drastic reduction? Say you're on like 8,000 calories a day, some big dude that eats like a horse, eats all kinds of crap food. This guy decides, I'm going to go on 2,000 calories a day. What happens to that person, Fak?
Well, obviously we know what happens, right? I mean, their weight's going to drop, the strength is going to drop, and then they're going to become a head case. They're going to wonder why. You know, why is this happening to me? Like, why, God, why is this happening to me? I'm still taking, you know, I'm taking 1,000 milligrams of test. I'm taking 600 milligrams of EQ. I'm taking Masterone, Proviron, Tren. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Why am I dropping weight? Because you're dropping that much food that quickly. You know, and then the opposite end of that is, you know, not dropping enough food and being too scared. Because, you know, you had mentioned earlier about being flat, right?
Yeah.
Some guys are just too scared. And these are people that just prep on their own. Some people are just too scared to ever drop enough food to look flat. So when they look flat, they're like, okay, I'm losing too much weight. And that's the reason why you see a lot of amateurs get on stage and they still look like they're taking, you know, they're taking 100 milligrams of D-ball per day the day of the show. You know, they look watery and they look big. I mean, they're big, but they look watery and, you know, they're still fat. So it's 2 extremes. One is the fear, which we all have as bodybuilders, right? I mean, I still have it. I've been off of PD since May 2018. Like the fear of being too small. Like I still put on the shirt and be like, shit, oh, it's fucking small. Let me try on this shirt. already knowing like, I'm already pretty much a normal person walking around, right? I work out 5 times a week, but the fear of getting small is one thing, which is a huge thing, especially for guys. For guys, that's the biggest thing.
100%.
For females is the fear of eating too much food. So that's where the extreme goes from male to female.
Yeah. So, I mean, getting back to keto one time, because keto always comes up. What is there a certain type? Like I've always had this, maybe it's a mistaken impression that keto works the best for obese people who have a lot of body fat to lose. Regular people who have a more favorable body composition don't necessarily need it. Do you work with a lot of people who are, because I know you have a lot of lifestyle clients they're not into all this bodybuilding crap. Someone like that, because there's a lot of people watching this to say, I don't want to be a bodybuilder, but I do want to get in some kind of shape for summer. And I know I'm like 60, 80 pounds overweight right now. Someone like that, do you think keto is a reasonable solution?
So the whole thing of calorie deficiency, to eat less calories, to burn more calories than eating, that's the main thing, right? That's like the highlight. That's like the thing that lifestyle clients should really think of, especially if you're not taking any type of PED. So whether it's intermittent fasting, whether it's fasting, not just intermittent fasting, keto, it comes down to a caloric intake at that point. Low carbs, zero carbs with protein, it's going to give you a harder time than keto is, because at least when you go into ketosis, your body starts, using the body fat, your self body fat, the body fat you have currently inside, and it starts using it as energy. When you have low carbs to zero carbs, you don't have any type of body fat, you really don't have any energy. So the only thing left to burn is what? It's protein. So now you're burning muscle, and your body really feels like shit. People complain about keto, but I think eating no carbs and not having the fat is a harder diet. It's also a lot easier to rebound as such as a yo-yo type of rebound, right? The way yo-yos will go up and down, you lose the weight, go back up, and that's what happens to a lot of people, because you cannot maintain that low carb all the time, and then you become insulin sensitive, not just carb sensitive, but insulin sensitive. The minute you put carbs in your body, again, your body needs carbohydrates. Your brain needs carbohydrates to function. So the minute you put in some type of carbohydrates, whether it's a family function, a business function, that once a week, lunch at your office that they buy, all that's getting sucked in. So you might be on 0 to low, very low carbs 5 days a week, even 6 days a week. Yeah. But that one day could put on a whole bunch of weight. And it doesn't just come in. It not necessarily comes back in body fat, but it comes back in water, because the body needs it. The body needs food to get sucked in. So I would say, again, myself, the last 2.5 weeks, I've chosen to do keto. But again, I could do intermittent fasting, and I'll probably go back and forth until I get back in the shape I want to get in. Unless I go full blown PEDs, and then me and Ron, we're gonna do a photo shoot together for muscular development.
Oh shit, oh, boy. Well, last question for you, Fak. So we're talking about competitors. Every show I go to, there's a huge amount of people who are in pretty good shape, but there's always only a couple who are in awesome shape. What do you think separates the people who get into that spectacular condition from the rest who are like, he looks pretty good, or she looks pretty good?
I'm gonna say something on the air that I tell people, and they're like, they look at me like, what? Like, okay, so I've never missed a peak. I've never missed a peak. I've never gone backwards with a client. If I've had a client 5 times, the 6th time they're gonna look better. If I had a client 1 time, the 2nd time they'll look better. Any clients ever came to me, I've always got them in the best condition possible. So a lot of it has to do, and again, people can say, well, Fak is full of shit. Fak is that, well, name me one client. One client, please. Tell me who's ever gone backwards. So a lot of it has to do with coaching. We talked about a lot of stuff right now, and it has to do with the eye, right? So if you don't have the eye to make the changes, how do I go to a show and there's a whole bunch of people competing, and they'll come up to me afterwards, or not just me, or there's another coach there, or I come up to the other coach myself, and I'm like, that was your guy, right? And they're like, yeah. You know, like if there's like a good coach there and like that was your guy, right? Yeah, that was my guy. You know, that was your girl, right? Yeah, that was my girl. Hey, you had middle class winner and the light heavyweight winner. Yeah, that was it. You know, so coaching, you know, it's not that you need the business, man. Is that when you're good at something, you're good at something, man. Especially at the national level.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about, you know, if you want to get into the NPC Nationals or even the Amateur Olympia, how many guys were shredded? How many guys were complete?
A few. There's a few.
Just
It's never many. It's never many.
anymore. Not anymore. You know, you have the top guys. You know, the guys at the Olympia that are doing really well. You know, and that especially this year and the last couple of years. Thank God that the Olympia has been picking back up, and we have something to look forward to now.
Oh yeah.
You know, it was a couple of years that I wasn't doing too well. You know, but I think conditioning is suffering the most because there's too many experts, man. There's too many social media advices. There's too many people wanting to be coaches. I think there's too many, cut out the test a month out. Even some of the pro guys, like, well, what happened? Why'd you lose so much weight? Well, I cut out the test a month out and the GH a month out. Why'd you do that? Well, to hold less water. I'm like, do you know what a Arimidex and Proviron is for? You know, like, you don't need that much. Like I've coached clients with Anadrol 50 going all the way into the show, right? As long as you're controlling the estrogen, and as long as you're controlling the water intake and manipulating the water and manipulating the food, why not? Anadrol 50 does what? What does what? It makes you pop. You know, it makes you bigger and rounder. So you just have to chisel out the water. You have to control the estrogen, and we're controlling the estrogen through Proviron. We're controlling the estrogen through the Femara. You know, Arimidex, and you know, Masterone. You know, Masterone is the injectable oil of Proviron.
Yeah.
You know, so there's different ways, but I think a lot of people, I really believe that bodybuilding is missing conditioning. But you know what's not missing conditioning, Ron? Men's physique.
Classic isn't, and men's physique isn't. Yeah. And women's physique, they're shredded too. Jeez.
Yeah. But you know why, right? Because there's a high class and there's a weight class.
That's right. Yeah. That's why when people say maybe they should get rid of the weight caps for classic, I'm like, no, then we're not gonna see anybody in shape anymore because they're just gonna
not in those divisions. No, not in those divisions. You know, and classical physique is taking, you know, classical physique is taking the genetically gifted bodybuilders away from bodybuilders. You see the guys with a small waist, wide shoulders, and again, they have to make weight, so they are shredded. They are in better condition, and that's the case. You go to these local shows, man. I mean, look at Breon, right? So Breon finished what, 4th at the Olympia this year?
Yep.
So Breon's condition in the 212. Sean beats him conditioning wise. Sean beats everybody conditioning wise. Sean is fucking the Ronnie Coleman of the 212 right now. I mean, Derek beat him last year, but as far as the distance between this year of Sean and I think Angel came in second, right? Angel was second. There was a big differential there. I personally think, you know, what's the name of the Arabic guy?
Kamal.
I'm sorry. Yeah. My bad, Kamal. I think Kamal was better conditioned. But where was Breon conditioning wise and on all the 212 guys? He was top 5, top 4.
Yeah.
You know, I think Breon was better conditioned than Angel was. Angel was big and he was hard, you know, but if you turn him around to the back, Breon was really conditioned.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
So I think bodybuilding is suffering from conditioning, and a lot of it is from what we talked about today, including some of the PEDs that we didn't mention.
Yeah, and I mean, just to one final thing to reiterate what you said, there's too many experts out there. Everybody and their grandmother is a coach now. Literally everybody. There's like 20-year-old kids that are contest prep coaches. That, you know, I roll my eyes. And just as a small example, there's a guy in my area who did a national master show last year, and I'm looking at him. He had a coach. And I looked up the coach. Kid was like 22 years old. You know, this guy's like closer to my age. I'm like, why'd you hire this? And like, oh, it was real cheap. I'm like, So 2 weeks out from the show, I'm looking at him. I'm like, dude, you look like you're 6 weeks out. I'm sorry. I said, you turn around. There's so much fat on your lower back, your ass, your hamstrings. That's not 2 weeks out. To me, I wouldn't want to look like that at 8 weeks out if that was me getting on stage. He's like, oh, it's fine. It's just water. Long story short, it wasn't water. He didn't make top 15. And now he knows maybe that coach wasn't the greatest coach. So guys, pick your coaches carefully. Not everybody's, in fact, very few people in this world have the expertise level, the experience of someone like a Fak and the eye to know No, you're not in any kind of shape. And this is what we need to do to get you in shape on this day, on that stage. Otherwise, you're going to get your ass handed to you.
You know, Ron, like not listen. These young guys are good entrepreneurs, right? They're making a lot of money on YouTube with these videos and stuff like that. Yeah. But man, when me and you, when we were both 22 years old, what could we eat and still stay shredded? You know, we could eat anything and still stay shredded as long as we worked out. When you were young, you know, you were big because you know you like to bulk up and you wanted to be a bodybuilder at a very young age. Yeah. You know, so you had that muscle, you had that muscle maturity and everything else. I got into bodybuilding, and my first show was at 26, but I was always shredded. You know, and I didn't keep a diet, but any young kid or any young girl, you know, they're gonna have the physique, and I don't understand how so many guys hire these young coaches. I just don't. They've never even coached themselves to be on stage, you know. But,
I think it's just cheap that they say, "Oh, this guy's going to charge me like $200 for a prep." Oh boy, you know. You get what you pay for, guys. You get what you pay for. You know,
buy some computer oil and some master oil for that price, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, Fak, this has been an interesting discussion. We'll have another one about a different topic soon. Want to wish you a happy new year, and everyone out there, happy new year. Make this a great year, 2023. We're out of the plague, the pandemic. Things are looking great, guys. And man, I thank you so much, Fak, for taking the time for another episode of Fak Attack.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate everything. Have a happy new year.
All right, everybody, please subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up thing. Do the bell in the corner so you know when the videos are coming. Leave some comments for me and Fak here. We love the feedback. Appreciate you watching. Thanks for watching Fak Attack with Fakhri Mubarak, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, bye.
Hey, did you like that video? Smash that like button, subscribe to MD, and please comment down below. Thanks for watching.